So here at Creig Northrop, Northrop Realty, CEO and founder. I've been doing this business for over 37 years. Been blessed. My mother's been over 50 years in the business. And so with that, and we've got over 400 agents and 16 offices, and proud about you coming last year and talking to us about sort of the economy and things like that. And when people think of real estate, they think of Northrop Realty. When they think of the economy, they think of Lawrence Yun. So I want to welcome Lawrence Yun. Appreciate the time you're given. I know last year you came to Northrop Realty. We have our retreat. We're at the Hyatt. We have our top 20 of the teams and top 20 of individuals, so the best of the best. We've been blessed with #1 brokerage in Maryland for the Power 100 rankings. One of the things that I can definitely admire about you is economics the way I know real estate. It's like you watch it so much, so passionately, as I watch real estate so passionately. And like others watch sports, right? They're so intense, like they just know everything, right? And one of the questions I always get from all people is, hey, I go, hi, I'm Creig Northrop. I go, how's the market? How's the market? What's the value of my property? And most importantly, what's going to happen in the economy? And that's where you come in here. But let's start. Let's talk a little bit first about who you are. I just want to kind of get a sense of, give us a little of your path, your background. Why economics to begin?
Well, Craig, thanks for inviting me. Certainly, the path towards economics was a little unusual. I actually did engineering as an undergraduate major, but when I took an elective course, when I had to fulfill that elective course, I took economics and fell in love with the topic. So much of the concept, common sense, may not really play out after further analysis, like unintended consequences. Those are economist phrases.
Right.
So I got fascinated, and consequently, I applied for graduate studies. And what do you know? Maryland, University of Maryland.
Terp, baby. Here you go. There you go. Go Terps.
Great program. So I feel very fortunate, and then I've been studying economics ever since.
I love that. See, I knew there's a tie. We sit here talk long enough. University of Maryland. We're proud to be a partner brokerage with them. And so what's really kind of cool about the Terps is there's such a unity, such a family member-ish, and great education. So with that, economics. When you kind of found that passion, talk to me a little bit about sort of how long did it really get you to really know it? I always say this: knowledge is confidence, confidence is trust, trust is sale, right? You have the most incredible amount of knowledge. When I get the question of how's the market, so I'm going to ask you that in a second, right? I get the question of how's the market. It is fantastic locally. I'm a local realtor. I have six states, Maryland being one of where we originated. And so with that, why? Well, inventory's starting to come up a little bit. Buyers are still buying. Interest rates haven't come down. But we're going to address that. That's the money question at the end. But ultimately, we're seeing our agents very busy, very active because they're all full-time and things like that. Bless, what do you see in the economy in that way? Like when you get that question, just that question, let's start there. How's the economy?
Well, here we are in mid-July, and the stock market, all-time high.
I know, isn't that crazy?
But the majority of the wealth for most middle-class families are in housing, and housing wealth, all-time high.
Wait, we sell houses.
So I think the realtors should be very proud. They are contributing to the success of Americans. Americans are essentially saying, what is my dream? I want to be financially secure. I want to be financially successful. And home ownership and housing wealth provide that path. So realtors contributing to that, and certainly your top agents have massively contributed to that process. Right. You look at the economy in that sense, it is just doing very, very well. Record high stock market, record high housing wealth, but then you have some underlying little worry, concern how it may play out. Tariff has benefits and costs. The cost elements, some of the home builders are concerned about some of the material costs part, and interest rate, as you mentioned. I thought the mortgage rate would be a little lower now compared to what I predicted 1 year ago. It did not play out. Federal Reserve has been very resistant to cut interest rate.
Right.
They want to see the inflation to be much calmer. And then we also have large budget deficit, and that doesn't help on the interest rate because anytime you borrow so much money, one has to pay a little higher interest for that cost.
Well, that makes sense. I always said housing fuels the economy, not only from an investment standpoint, how do you, how do you get rich? I see rich, get wealthy in the sense of real estate investing, right? But the other side of it is when we sell a house, that same consumer, does some kind of cosmetics to them, painting, carpeting, all that. They buy a car within 6 months. It's actually a stat that says you buy a house within 6 months, you buy a car. Like that fueling of, the largest purchase anyone's ever going to make does fuel other things in the economy. You see that?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a secondary economic effect. So anytime one sees, for example, home modeling expenditure or even lawn care, roofing repair, all that happens either related to home sales, the sellers contributing or the buyers soon after spending more money. The moving truck, all the delivery people, their income are derived from moving people around.
Right.
I mentioned that, the housing wealth is record high. But the business of real estate has been sort of flatlined because of high interest rate. Now, if the interest rate comes down, which I do anticipate later this year and definitely by next year,
Wait for that. That's the grand finale. We'll
huge boom related to economic impact from a home sale.
Well, it's interesting, that what I find is with housing, the sellers, most sellers, have these 2 to 3% interest rates, right? And so they're really hard to go, hey, by the way, I want to sell my house and move to a 6.5% interest rate, let's say. I think that's been the tough thing about inventory. But as I always say, don't, watch what you wish for, because inventory is starting to come up. The inventory, as it grows, what you're finding is that, that the demand, it's called supply and demand, right? We all know that, right? That's economics 101. As supply starts growing up, the demand starts decreasing because they have more options, right? And so things are staying on the market a little longer. People are giving concessions. We're doing home inspections back again. We didn't have them before, right? Home inspections are back. And I think that's just, we found that our market has revolutionized to where it is today, where I think we've had a great, our May was one of our best in company history. I think June and July are traditionally slower just because vacations, things like that. But I'm really, really excited to hear a little bit about the fourth quarter. I'm going to regress a little bit. Last year, you made some predictions. You came here to our best of the best, the agents, and you gave us some great advice. We walked out. Fantastic. What did you feel from last year to this year as you're reviewing it? Because I know, again, thank you for coming and presenting to us after this. What did you feel was different from last year to you coming into presentation this year?
Last year there was one big uncertainty, which was presidential election. So that was uncertainty.
Valid point. You tend to forget about that. That's over now.
And then, the mortgage rate condition, what's going to happen?
Right.
But overall, I saw the economy continuing to crank out jobs, and that's what we are. We are continuing to add jobs. And that is always a source of potential housing demand. Maybe the realization of housing demand is not there because of high interest rate, but the potential is building and building and building. So thinking about the pipeline, people sitting on the fence, ready to get into the market.
A lot of pent-up demand.
A lot of pent-up demand. Right. It just has opened the gate from lowering the interest rate. And I think the market expectation is for the Fed to do at least 2 rate cuts this year. But my view is that just to normalize interest rates, Federal Reserve need to do about 6 rounds of rate cut. Not all of it this year. Some will be pushed to next year. But I think what this is implying is that the demand will be coming in. Like the inventory story, I think people are completely surprised. I talked with reporters many times, and reporters a couple of years ago said, maybe we will be stuck with low inventory for a long, long period.
Wow.
But what do you know? Now we have inventory.
I know.
I remember 15 years ago, especially in Miami, where they had a massive foreclosure crisis from those bad subprime loans. Thank goodness we don't have those bad mortgages anymore. Historically low foreclosure rate. But back then, 15 years ago, people were saying there's 40 years supply of inventory in Miami. Nothing will happen for the next 40 years. But then Miami, boom. So one has to always anticipate the unexpected surprises. Be prepared. Look at the market signals, how things are changing. And today's market signal, we have more inventory. Based on the market lengthening, sellers have to be realistic to the market. They can no longer expect multiple offers to be present.
I would agree. Obviously, more selection, lower showings, right? You tend to see that a little bit more because there's a lot more spread out. And I think we as agents have to prepare ourselves with the question of how do you compete in a competitive market, right? Where you were used to sticking it up and it's sold. I used 2005 where I could have been head of lettuce and sell real estate. I mean, it was like, so that was easy, right? I think our market's been dynamic. I think we have to have full-time agents. I think things like that are important to make a difference and make your seller stand out. Be memorable. You're the most memorable man in the economic space. Talk to us a little bit about your background with NAR, things like that. Give us a little bit of that, because I think they don't really know all about you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel very fortunate to have worked with National Association of Realtors. Started as a junior economist, just cranking out numbers, all the data points, and then to become more of a presenter, trying to digest those heavy economic numbers into numbers where people can understand. I always view it as importance of communication. Some people say, "Can you dumb it down?" I don't like that word because people are busy with their own specialization. People are doing open houses, so they're focusing on their specialty. So how do we communicate? So communication. So I'm trying to put that heavy set of economic data into communication point. And today, for example, this morning, there was a fresh consumer price inflation number that came out.
Fresh.
I guess the number was a little better than anticipated, but still saying that inflation is not yet fully under control.
Gotcha.
But one has to monitor those figures, and how do you explain that for ordinary consumers who want to buy a home?
Right.
What does that mean for mortgage rate? What does that mean for the stance of the Federal Reserve? Are they leading to cut rates, or are they, pausing a little longer? All that. So for me. I like to see the data movements. Now, sometimes data move in a good way, other times in a bad way, but we know that there's always cycles, and I think we should be ready for a tremendous upward swing that will happen because of tremendous buildup in potential housing demand.
Wow. I mean, wow. So the three factors I hear we say, tariffs, you mentioned that a little bit. Tariff effect on real estate, is there an effect truly, or just the economy in general? Is tariffs an effect?
Tariffs itself is slight negative because it raises price of imported material costs for home builders.
Okay.
But if it is a negotiated tariff, that say other country, you reduce your tariff so American can reduce our tariffs.
Right.
So if it's a lead to negotiation, then it will be overall better for the countries involved.
Wow.
So there's a little more, I think, deeper analysis on tariff just than saying, things will be more expensive.
Right, I got you. I think that's a great answer. Inflation, again, you just mentioned the index, things like that today. Heating up, not going to reheat up. Where do you see inflation going in the fourth quarter?
So this morning's data is showing 2.7% inflation. Fed's target, unofficial target, is about 2%. So we're getting close to there. 3 summers ago, it was 9% inflation.
9%?
People are angry. Now it's closer to 2%. We're getting to the normal. So as we get to the normal inflation, it means normal interest rate policy, which means about 6 rounds of rate cut, in my view.
6 rounds of rate cuts, but is there an indicator? Like I know you watch. Is there a specific indicator that we all, as just kind of watching the market, not being the economist that you are, that would say, hey, we're in the right direction? Is there some kind of indicator at all? What's the biggest indicator for inflation, or sorry, not for inflation, for interest rates to really get in the right direction?
It's really the inflation numbers, so it's moving in the right direction. And the 10-year Treasury is something that, first thing that I do each morning when I wake up, what's happening, because mortgage rates,
watch the market, he watches it, I love it.
Mortgage rates are more tied to the 10-year Treasury, down slightly, which means mortgage rate will be a little lower now. But overall, I think also the consumer's mindset is that 3%, 4% mortgage rate, people who have it, congratulations. But I think new sets of consumers recognize those were exceptionally low, special circumstances. The new normal will not be that. The new normal would be 6 to 7%, and that's what we are. So I think people.
So where would you be as an economist happy if the interest rates get to? How about that? Is there like a midpoint that says really that's what I was sort of predicting? Where does that number feel?
So I think if we can get under 6% mortgage rate, that would be wonderful. And we may get to under 6% possibly sometime next year. But I think we're going to be more bouncing around near 6% for the foreseeable foreseeable future.
I think that's a magic number if we can get under 6, because that will, then the people that are 3% go, hey, it's not that bad, right? For some reason, okay up to about 6. When they start hearing past 6, they kind of slow it down. One other thing too that kind of comes to my mind is Northrop Realty is really focused on the Mid-Atlantic. That's what we watch. We watch the markets on the East Coast. Well, give us a little sense of the region. Like, is there specific areas that are really hot right now versus other areas in the United States?
The Mid-Atlantic region is very interesting because first, it has many high professional, high educated, high salary employees. And they traditionally be buying in the suburbs, inner suburbs. But we have seen because of COVID, people are willing to test out a little further out into the marketplace.
Very good.
Now there's a return to office policy, or maybe not the return. There's a lot of the debate within the companies about what is the right hybrid work model. Is it 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 2 days fully remote? So given that, it's still unclear. But one thing is also baby boomers are retiring. With each passing day, more baby boomers are retiring, and they want to have some type of resort type of destination as their home, yet stay near family members who may be nearby Mid-Atlantic region.
Grandchildren are a big deal.
Yeah,
It is.
That's
Yes,
right.
it is
So usually the grandparents, sometimes they may go test it out very far away, but then they return because grandkids are truly
I have 2 of
magical
them. I
attachment.
agree with that.
Yeah,
I always say, he says, Papa, that's my name. But grandchildren are amazing. Between that, I would say the biggest moves, people ask, well, who is the biggest movement of market, right? It would be the grandchildren are certainly it, and the right sizers. I call it right sizers. They all say downsizers, but right sizers. You bring the family up, you guys it up, they all go to colleges, and now what, right? Now you go, it's kind of like the evolution of life. So just kind of a neat thing there. Just last piece, as I get asked all the time, fourth quarter, I keep hearing that it's going to be one of the best fourth quarters we've seen in a long time. I'd love to hear from you in this sense of perspective. Just let's stick with fourth quarter, something that everyone can resonate on when they ask, how's the economy, how's the market, how's the fourth quarter going to be?
Before going to the fourth quarter, again, I want to congratulate you for having the best month of May ever.
Thank you.
This is quite amazing.
Thank you.
But we look at some of the 4 early leading indicator like mortgage application. Mortgage application means desire to buy. Sometimes they slightly miss in terms of qualifying, but at least the desire to buy on the mortgage application data is showing about 25% above 1 year ago. So that there's buyers, again, very eager. They're just looking for little lower rates so they can qualify for a mortgage for the right pricing they're looking for and to get into the market. And another part is I think there will be more buyers also wanting to test out with more inventory. So overall, this fourth quarter,
Here it is, fourth quarter.
Is looking at probably around 10%, 15% above fourth quarter of last year, and the momentum will be continuing throughout 2026.
So one last question, Lawrence. Just wanted to ask you, unemployment. I think people don't really understand how it exactly affects the economy, or the interest rates. So could you put a little perspective on that?
Well, unemployment rate at near 4% or a little above. These are normal unemployment rate in a free market society where people have right to quit their job, look for new ones, or companies can fire some bad employees, just normal dynamics. So it's very low unemployment rate. Some economists are forecasting maybe it will go up to 5. Even if it's 5%, I'm not really concerned. I don't forecast that level. But what is more important for the economy and for the housing market is not the unemployment rate, but how many job additions? And job addition is continuing to be positive. So to be unemployed, some people have to search for a job, but there are many people, what we care about is how many people are receiving paycheck, and that number is rising.
Love it. I appreciate your knowledge, your expertise, and really your time. Thank you for coming, and we're looking forward to you talking to the best of the best shortly and giving that same feel, that same thing that we all need. That I call it optimism. Insurance. I call it insurance, right? And you go, well, insurance is a negative. No, it's not. It's called enthusiasm and optimism. And optimism in this market is what we all need, and we all got to believe, because real estate is the best investment ever. And again, I think as you have already said, is interest rates are going to ultimately come down. We ultimately have a lot of pent-up demand, and we are seeing more inventory, so that's already happening. Fourth quarter is going to be the best fourth quarter we've ever seen. Thank you, Lawrence. Appreciate the time. Guys, have a great day.